Okay, so we're on air. We've got a big green on air light. We're right to go.
You're right to go.
Okay. Welcome, James.
Thank you.
Welcome, Luke.
Thanks, mate.
Welcome to...
That show.
Oh, that didn't work.
That DV show.
Changing the name of it, all right. Welcome everybody to...
That DV show.
Today we're going to be... Previously... Sorry. Yeah, I had to do it. Previously on...
That DV show.
We spoke about... we had one of our Digital Village producers with us, Suraj Prabhari, who is founder and principal consultant of a digital analytics consultancy, and we were talking about lifetime value modeling. And this month, we're with James Diekman, and we're talking about accelerating transformation and digital transformation specifically with the Microsoft Power Platform.
Yep.
So welcome.
Thank
nice
you.
to have
Thanks
you
for
here.
having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So before we go into the topic of excelling transformation, I thought it might be good to talk about the need for transformation in the first place, and why we're here talking about that, and why is transformation such an important thing right now. And obviously, it's quite clear we're all going through this kind of dealing with uncertainty and rapid, massive kind of change in the world. So organizations are facing a lot of change and how they have to adapt to that change, and a lot of uncertainty. We're not really, it's very obvious things can happen very randomly, as we've experienced this year. So how has your 2020 been in terms of negotiating or navigating or responding to the uncertainty and change that the world's provided everyone?
It's been a very interesting year, like most can attest to. So, yeah, essentially started this company in a global pandemic, which is an interesting time to be doing it. I guess in February this year, I was quite ambitious and I wanted to go out and start it then. And then, COVID hit. I pulled back a bit. I go, okay, we'll just play it safe here and see what happens. And then, around July, I said, no, I just got to do it.
Just went for it.
Just went for it. So,
Great.
There's never going to be a perfect time to do these things. You've just got to back yourself and do it, and have the belief, and opportunities will present themselves. So, so far so good. We've got a few clients already, some early wins, early success, which is quite good. And yeah, in terms of what we're seeing, obviously, I was talking to you earlier. There's been a massive shift in transformation, how quickly it's happening now. People have just had to do it. They've had to sort of forget about the old ways of doing these long, drawn-out programs and projects with a bunch of consultants. They're doing things quicker, faster, cheaper. So their mindsets have changed. The customer, the buyer, they're looking for these solutions going forward. Platform-based solutions where they can do this sort of stuff. So this message is resonating really well with people we're talking to. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting that you just described your kind of personal journey that was reflected your business journey as well, and how your mindset of having a kind of proactive response to that uncertainty of just going and doing it anyway in this world of VUCA. Actually, do you want to pop up that slide?
Yeah, it's probably
volatility and uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. We had Anuraj Gambhir on a previous stream event with us talking about the future of work. Anuraj is a futurist and technology innovator, and he was describing quite passionately about how organizations are needing to adopt this new mindset that you're talking about, actually, and really it's on this one over here. So turning the fragile kind of view of a VUCA world into an agile, and translating it from volatility into vision, and uncertainty into understanding, complexity into clarity, and ambiguity into agility. And that represents, in my mind, like a kind of startup mentality that you of like embracing this change. Anuraj was calling it exponential kind of mindset. So Anyway, so I'm quite interested in how organizations are responding to this change, not just from like a mindset perspective, but also what they're doing from a more practical perspective. And
like what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, like what are they actually doing within organizations?
For sure.
Yeah. And a book that was released end of last year, it was it just provides a very good kind of framework probably for this conversation and a way of showcasing how organizations, like more bigger organizations, are actually adopting to change or going through these transformation journeys. The book is called Designed for Digital, and it was published in September 2019 by the MIT Sloan Center of Information Systems Research. And it essentially looked at, over a 4-year period, doing research into over 100 companies who had become successful digital companies, and defined 5 organizational capabilities that that they have found inherent in all of these different organizations in different kinds of forms that were required for their success. Actually, do you want to just go to the next slide?
Yeah,
again?
sure.
And this is it. Actually, Steve, do you want to share the link to that book that I'm referring into the chat, or you just done that? Okay, thanks.
He's good.
Legend. And so, so as you can see, it's looking, so there's 5 kind of building blocks to that. The operational backbone, which is primarily looking at systems and processes, having clearly defined process of the company. A digital platform represents a repository of different digital components that teams can use to build various different applications or whatever it might, from a business or customer perspective. An external developer platform is referring to access provided to third parties or external people to via APIs or other to contribute or build their own things, to things like marketplaces and things like that.
Leveraging the internal assets so that the value can be realized outside of the organization.
Yeah, it's like sharing. It's kind of not democratizing it, but and shared customer insights, essentially talking about data, and what that might look like is a big data lake of business information and customer information, and being able to draw on that to create new propositions, to understand what customers value, what anything, right? And then an accountability framework, which speaks to probably more the people side of things, which we talk a lot about in the digital village world through the produce. Anyway, it's a different story, but I guess an example of that is so like in this model, it promotes it proposes that organizations are needing to, rather than doing larger big program changes, experimenting with multiple digital offerings and like through an MVP process, and trying lots of different things, new propositions through digital offerings, leveraging the different components and so on. And then the accountability framework, what that might look like is having a dedicated small team on a per product basis, where they're accountable specifically to the delivery and the success of that product. And that's a very meaningful way to work, for one, and a great example of that accountability framework. So anyway, I guess I just wanted to share that because the points that a digital transformation journey is not necessarily about technology. It's about designing new business models, designing the way organizations are structured, and new business models within that. So how does technology, what role does technology play in all of that? So that's why, from what I'm quite excited about what we're going to be talking about today, because I haven't had a lot of personal exposure to this platform, but from what I have seen about the Power Platform and the greater Microsoft ecosystem, is that it really it's quite synchronized with this kind of model of these different components in terms of the data sharing and the digital platform. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that, and also maybe share a little bit more about Sentient and yourself as well.
Yep. Yeah. So look, to your point on that, I mean, you've probably heard the notion of every company is becoming a technology company.
Mm.
So, tech is weaving its way into everything to run businesses, better customer experiences, better employee experiences, optimizing things, making things better, making companies more resilient. So everything that you've described there and put up, technology can interweave in all of those things and make a real impact. So,
Yeah, cool. So why are we talking about the Power Platform today, given there's this is not a sponsored thing or anything like that? Like, why are we,
Yeah, look, it's something I've been involved with for a couple of years now. So I've always been in technology career, from working customer side for large enterprise organisations and government, through to consulting for the last couple of years, through a modern workplace consultancy that grew from a couple of people to 90 people, quite big, lots of success in the modern workplace space. So really got a real good look at how the very early stages of a startup and helping run that all the way to where it got to, or where it's still going, obviously, going strong. So gave me a lot of confidence and experience to then say, right, I want to go out and do this on my own. I want to focus on this particular area. So I see the Power Platform and the Lowcode, no-code area, which we're obviously going to talk a bit about, as a bit of an inflection point, because if you look at all the data and the trends and you read the reports, that's where the industry is going. It's where a lot of developers are also going as their starting point. And some of these platforms, which we'll talk about, obviously in particular the Microsoft one, it's heavily extensible into their infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, more pro-code space in Azure. So you've got a lot of different options there. It's not just a drag and drop, PowerPoint type interface. There's you can start there and build out some quite some really cool solutions and things that solve real problems. Some demos that will show that highlight that, and then you can take things further. So you can have your business users, your power users, building in an environment that's IT endorsed. One login to get in there, so it's safe, secure. You've got best-in-class data compliance, governance capabilities as well to see what's going on. And your users can go in there and create and make. And then when they need to leverage external consultancies like us or internal pro-code developers, they can. And they can extend those solutions to for more complex activities.
Yeah, that really speaks to those these different components that we've got up on the slide at the moment, right? Like the operational backbone. That's the whole Microsoft ecosystem, that big enterprise infrastructure sitting underneath those things. But then individual users, they have the ability just to go and create things on top of that. That leverage, those, as you say, like professional and endorsed IT infrastructure.
With existing, plumbing all the way through to the data and everything as well. It makes it very powerful.
Yeah, what's really good about these platforms, particularly the Microsoft one, is the plumbing's already in place. So you can get things up and running very fast. And as I'll show you in one of these next slides, you're getting the best of sort of the platform as a service world and also the software as a service world as well. Because you're supported by them, it's highly resilient. You don't have to worry about all of that other stuff that you would typically have to deal with when you've got an on-prem system, which a lot of companies still do. Lots of stuff's on-prem. But they manage the full stack. So they're in the business, so they've got a large portion of their organisations are spent for IT operations and infrastructure, still managing those things. It's some of it's a big task to get those and put them into the cloud, but there's other easier ways to do it. You can extend the life of some of these things by using technologies in Microsoft Power Platform and Azure that connect them and use automation and that sort of stuff. So you can start doing it in a more lean and agile way and a more cost-effective way, which I think is what everyone's going to be sort of expecting going forward, and it's certainly what we do is in a very rapid, agile, iterative type of way. So it lends itself well to sort of these new mindsets and thinking that's going on out there. So
cool. Okay. Well, Will we get into it and have
Yeah.
let's have a look
Take
at
a
the PowerPoint?
Yeah, so a couple of slides and then we'll do some demos.
Okay.
So I thought we'd start right at the top, super high level, low code, no code. And I think there's still a bit of sort of a stigma out there that they don't, they're a bit gimmicky, they're just sort of for business users, what can you really do with them? You're going to get more out of coding something and it's better in the long run.
For a low or no code system or application, what are some examples of that people might be familiar with?
So FileMaker Pro is maybe something that a lot of people have, has been around for a very long time. Lotus Notes, right? There's still remnants of that about, but that's essentially a low-code, no-code platform.
Yeah.
Access, Microsoft Access as well.
Yeah.
You can even go as far as saying Excel and Word are low-code, no-code platforms because you can do things to those. You can you can even automate stuff within them. And it's an interface that you can drag and drop, and it's visual, and you get feedback straight away. It's not lines of code.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's some of the old school ones, and then there's been lots of more modern ones that have come out. Salesforce has had their Lightning product for a number of years, and they're a leader in the market. There's sort of about 6 leaders if you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant. ServiceNow are in that quadrant as well. They've got some products. Oracle have their own. Amazon's just released one of theirs. Google's acquired, I think it's AppSheet, and they've got something. So you can see just purely based off these big tech companies that they're all pushing heavily into this direction.
Yeah, for sure.
And Microsoft is heavily investing in this area. The rate of them releasing new products and features, it's kind of almost on a weekly basis with some big stuff coming out around events and and the bi-yearly release waves. But it's incredibly hard to keep up with. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
So we're almost at the point now where you need specialists in each individual. You can't absolutely cover the whole area.
No.
Pick a few technologies, get a team that specializes, one in the automation side of things with APIs and JSON, someone else who's in, building the application and, can do JavaScript and code as well, developer and functional consultants and that sort of thing. So with that mix, you can do some pretty compelling stuff. But going back to this is sort of the highlight where it fits in. So, as I said before, if you've still got your applications on premise, you're spending a lot of your workforce and effort managing those, maintaining those, extending the life of them. You've got to deal with disaster recovery, business continuity, things in different data centers, storage, virtualization, networking, like the whole basket.
Yeah. That's when people actually have the server running inside their building somewhere.
Yeah. Still lots of that going on. Even this day and age. And then you look at IaaS. So IaaS, Amazon Web Services. I'm not super familiar with Google Cloud, but certainly Azure as well. You can go and essentially take a lot of that on-prem stuff, which a lot of companies had been doing. I don't think it's the most cost-effective way of doing it. It's just lifting and shifting and putting it in the cloud. Your costs are going to be pretty similar, but you don't have to manage as much. Microsoft take care, or Amazon take care of some of that stuff. Then you get into the platform as a service arena, and that's when obviously they take on more of it. So you're looking at serverless-based application, microservices, stuff like that. So you're then transforming those legacy applications into serverless microservice applications, and you're paying for events and things that happen and processes, not so much the ongoing, just appliances being turned on. And then you've got SaaS, and everything's pretty much with the vendor. And you don't have any say in the little say in the direction of where the product's going. You're kind of locked into, what they're doing and where they're going. So you lose a lot of that, ability to customize and tailor things to your own individual company's business processes and needs. Which
there's a lot of risk built into that as well, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you jump on the wrong one or back the wrong one, then they, go out of business or decide to completely change direction, you're left with a big problem, to put it bluntly. But so where does the low-code application platforms fit in? About here. So you get the best, and particularly Power Platform, I like to say you get the best of both worlds.
Mm.
You get the stuff on the platform side, the serverless side, the building blocks, the things that you can build out solutions with. But then you get the SaaS type features as well. So the high availability support, and the low code, no code interfaces. So
Yeah.
so that's essentially where they sit in the broader scheme of the platform arena. This is an interesting quote here that I wanted to highlight, and I've seen more and more of these things pop up through developer webinars and other meetups and stuff like that, where developers are going to be starting off with a lot of these solutions and then
Wow.
extending the rest, because you can get started so quickly.
Yeah, that's a big start.
It's
75%.
huge.
Yeah, I read through it a couple of times to make sure I didn't.
So, I mean, this is something that I kind of highlighted the other day, that the Power Platform is primarily for business applications and internal use primarily. Is that right? But if you're wanting more like a kind of refined customer experience where you might be using some kind of JavaScript framework or something like that, which isn't part of the ecosystem, obviously, it can still be easily integrated.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, the short version of it is geared towards internal business users.
Mm.
You need that Azure Active Directory login, so an Office 365 login per se, to access the applications. You can share them to guest organisations, and as long as they have a license, they can come in and use it.
Yeah.
They do have portal capabilities where you can have external people come in through modern authentication providers like Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, SAML data, auth, and you can expose stuff out to external people. There's various costs and further customization and stuff associated with that. That I feel, and I've even spoken to people at Microsoft, they acknowledge as well that area needs a bit more of
attention.
bit more attention.
Yeah.
The B2C side of it.
Yeah.
But there's some new
For sure.
frameworks and things coming out that allow you to develop on top of it. So use this as a data store and get that amazing administration experience and security model and all the other good bits and pieces. And then customize and build out a custom portal in a different framework. And obviously there's more customization, but you'd save money in the long run with licenses and stuff like that.
Right.
So I do feel that that's going to become more and more prevalent as we move on. So
yeah. Okay. Especially if there's going to be that many dev shops doing it, they're going to have to become solution to that. But
No, I was going to say, did they provide some reasoning behind or some analysis behind that stat?
There's a
This is for next year. This is their prediction for next year, right?
There's I'll have to dig up the article. Maybe we can link it or something.
Yeah, that'd be
if
awesome.
you Google it, it's there's a whole interview done with I can't remember the guy's name from Forrester.
Yeah.
And there was all his insights into next year, and one of them was low-code, no-code, and this was a prediction stat that they've come up with.
I think Steve's trying to dig out the article, so we'll share it on the
Steve.
chat.
So it's probably worth just seeing where it fits. The Microsoft Power Platform fits within the broader ecosystem of Microsoft apps. So Microsoft 365, I'm sure many people are familiar with that. It's where the collaboration, productivity suites live. So Teams, SharePoint, Windows, all the Office applications, security, that sort of stuff, or end user security lives there. Power Platform is a fairly new kind of, look at this notion of three clouds. They've had Dynamics 365 for some time, and that's kind of where a large portion of it originated from. It's all their business applications, and they've had different acquisitions from ERP companies and other business accounting softwares, and they've been on this really long journey over the last few years, and they've kind of got to the point now where they've integrated it pretty tightly and added on the Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, Power Virtual Agents. There's a bunch of other stuff sitting on the scenes, which we'll go down a level deeper and take a look at. So that's their business application platform. And then Azure, which I guess a lot of people are probably familiar with, that's the full-blown cloud platform
cloud offering.
with 150 services that cover SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, and the full serverless capabilities. But as I was saying before, the compelling thing about this is that you can extend into these each way quite easily. So you can bring your applications to where your users are doing their work instead of having them to come into the application. So maybe you don't want to have a particular team or users having to come into an application that you build and license them every single time. Maybe you just want to send them some outputs or some events or messages into Teams where they're working, all through a dashboard or a report, or
so you can take advantage of what they're using right now.
Okay. You can bring some of this stuff to where they're working, which is what a terminology basically. So there's a lot of different ways that you can craft up and build these solutions and integrate them into existing workflows. And then on the other side, obviously going into Azure, you can take advantage of a lot of advanced stuff. If you sort of pushed that Power Platform and common data service to its limits, you might have a better use case from a technical standpoint, but also an economic standpoint to go and do it in Azure. Because with some of these products in the Power Platform, you are paying for the privilege for that low-code, no-code drag and drop experience.
Sure.
Whereas Azure, you're not. You got to do it yourself.
Got to
you
do the
got to get in there
work.
and code it up and make it all happen. But sometimes the numbers stack up to do some stuff in Azure and do stuff in Power Platform. So you can use that as we like to use it as our starting point, Power Platform, and do as much as we can in there, and then we'll go and extend out based on requirements and
so
also
that means you're not having to throw
dollars.
anything away to move to Azure. You can extend into that functionality that it provides.
Yeah, and then not really, not shown here, is there's over 400 connectors. A lot of them external. Majority of them out of 400 are external into other systems and platforms.
Okay.
So you don't have to be looking at this and going, I have to commit full everything to Microsoft and just migrate everything over. You can integrate it into your existing workflows and stacks, and you'd be surprised that if it's got an API, you can get it in there and then transfer data both ways. So going down a level deeper into the Power Platform, and this is pretty much in a nutshell what you get. So you get the business analytics, interactive dashboards, authoring and producing and putting them out there to your business and the web through Power BI. It's got some incredible capabilities, and that's something that's blown up in the last few years in terms of people using that a lot more than Excel to author and share reports, just because of the ease of use and the querying and updating, but
it's the one people are more likely to be familiar with, isn't it?
I think so, it's certainly been kind of the hero for a while. It tends to be. It's had some pretty significant growth numbers. And then Power Apps, which is your application platform. So you've got various types of apps as well. You've got more metadata forms over data. They're similar, to a Dynamics 365 application. And then you've got Canvas apps, which is a very free flow, blank canvas. You drag and drop all your components on, and then you wire it up. Which is like a WYSIWYG type thing, and it's probably where a lot of people think, okay, no code, low code. That's sort of what
they
it is.
imagine, right?
Yeah. And then Power Automate, which was one of my favorites. Workflows, automations, approvals, all those things that you don't like doing manual. Data input and printing off forms and all that sort of stuff.
It's the processes that companies create, and then you get to implement it and that sort of thing instead of having everybody remembering which forms they have to fill out or who they have to talk to. So that's a good one because you can start small. You can use it for personal automation as well. So when emails arrive, you can do certain things with it and stuff. But then what we typically see users in organisations is they kind of get hooked and then they look at what else they can do with it, and there's a hell of a lot you can do with it.
Then the virtual agents, which is a pretty new product, and that is creating, pretty much says in the name, virtual chatbots, having them in Teams, websites, Facebook as well, social media. So customer service, but also internal customer service as well for employees. But these ones are also geared for external use cases. So if someone wanted to log a ticket or get feedback on the progress of an order, they can do that through asking questions and getting feedback through an interactive chatbot. And then when it gets to a certain point that you tell it to say, hey, go to a human now, well then it can do that, and you can fire it off. But there's some interesting use cases that we're seeing around these replacing intranets and knowledge articles and Q&As. So you go in there and you ask it the questions that you would normally go into an intranet to ask, and there's sometimes intranets, there's a lot of dollars and effort go into it and planning, and sometimes they're not really widely adopted or used or utilised, and they just gather dust and
And then, but I guess it's if they're able to be, I guess, smart enough to actually have people find what they're looking for. Which is where a lot of chatbots have often failed. I mean, the concept's good, but
they've still got a long way to go. But for a knowledge base or a question and answer type thing, I used to work at Westpac. They had a whole question bank thing. You go onto an intranet and there was like an acronym buster, and you'd find there's all this stuff. But a chatbot is perfect for those sorts of use cases and providing better experiences.
It's more intuitive.
So you've got data connectors for lots of different things, internal, external. AI Builder, which is a pretty new one. So that's got some pretty cool capabilities for automatic form processing, image recognition, text recognition, sentiment, and there's a number of them. And then Dataverse, which was the common data service up until recently, they've renamed it again, is it's the data store that underpins it all.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. And then you've got security, roles, permissions, data loss prevention, and then Azure AD. So I can't underscore enough that Azure AD component for an organisation being, there's so many times that teams and employees, they go outside of IT and go and just put a credit card down and go get the Monday.com or the Asana or the latest thing that IT, it's outside of their purview. They can't control it. If that employee leaves, then who owns it. Things are maybe they have requirements to keep it on shore, data at rest. With this, the employee leaves, you just turn off the account and it all goes. And then you can share these apps and things that they've made onto other people.
So this is kind of the thing we've been talking about, like underlying these things. We have this infrastructure that's there to maintain like the security and availability of that infrastructure, the information systems.
Which is getting more and more critical these days. So common data service, now Dataverse, what do you get? So for we talked about licenses the other day. It is a complex licensing. It can be complex, but to keep it simple, if you wanted to have, there's two licenses. There's basically a per application license. It's about $10 per user per month, and that allows you to run 2 applications in a portal, or it's $50 per month, and you can run unlimited applications. So if you're looking and saying, well, we've got 5 or 6 apps out there and we're paying, $100,000 a year, those could be put in license users $50. There'd be an interesting ROI discussion there in total cost of ownership metrics, because what you get is pretty significant, right? If you think about what goes into building out an enterprise application, security, it's logic, data storage, integration. All of these things are just they're there. They're ready to start configuring them and customizing them and consuming them. So that's why you can start so quick, because a lot of the plumbing is in place.
Yeah, that's amazing, because that's like that's the underside of the iceberg, right? When people are thinking about, we have this new enterprise initiative, we're going to build this thing out that some part of the organisation is going to benefit from, and if they're building it from bottom up, underneath all of that is everything we can see in this slide here that needs to be
Yeah.
accounted for.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so often
Yep.
gets left out.
And it's supported by Microsoft. So
Yeah.
if things break or go down, well, they're going to fix it.
You
As
got
long as you
the
don't go
phone.
outside, there's instances where you can customize, kind of break things a little bit or do unsupported things. But it's very, you really got to be trying hard to do that. But yeah,
No, it's
you get a
amazing.
phenomenal amount of tech essentially and platform there.
Yeah.
Spoke about extensibility. I just wanted to quickly highlight some of the main things that we use and see. So, extending into Azure, there's just a sort of world of possibilities that you can do there. So, Azure DevOps, the Power Platform supports application lifecycle management, single build automation, single click. Get it from one environment to another. So you can have sandbox environments, dev environments, production environments, getting it through, automating that process, doing the system checks, putting all the build components together. So it's very enterprise, ALM friendly as well.
And so does that mean if you've got people who are like making their own things using the no-code interface and making their application, then they get to benefit from that like very sort of professional approach to testing and deploying applications. Like, we put it in we put it in a staging environment or a sandbox, and people could use it and test it. And once it's approved, okay, we can make it go live. Things like that.
Yeah. So exactly. I think they need to be educated, obviously, on how to do it. And there's that whole center of excellence stuff, which we'll talk about. But part of the standing up a center of excellence and some of these tools that Microsoft provide is that when any new app is created in the environment, a welcome email is sent, and you can configure that to include a list of guidelines, processes, training materials. Put in there,
dynamic content that you can like pull based on different rules of who it should be to where it's pulling information from. Things,
you have to go and do training first before you're allowed to go and build and those sorts of things. And you can put it through risk control processes. So I think educating people, but even teams, it's obviously a lot where consultancies come in and help build up that capability and the guardrails, so to say. We're working with a client at the moment, and they want to stand up a sandbox and a production environment for each of their sub brands and agencies, because the data you can move data in between them, but the way they operate, there's not much sort of data going between them. So, all the apps associated with that brand or agency, that'll go into, people will go and do it in that sandbox, and that's where we'll develop it in there and then move it into production. And then getting it from the sandbox into production, there's a low-code way of doing it. It's export a file, it's a zip file, and then you import it into production. It does some checks and stuff, and fingers crossed, goes through. It's pretty good. I've had some late nights with things not going well a couple of years ago, but anyway. But the Azure DevOps side of it, that's if you're you want to get quite serious about it and automate it, and you've got multiple people working on the solution as well. That's where it really comes into play. You can build it all together and launch it.
How customizable is given that it is low code, heading towards a kind of drag and drop editor? How flexible is it in creating custom software applications? I mean, how limited are you to the different components or modules within the system?
I don't want to say there's no limits now, but they've released this new framework. So Microsoft released a framework that their own developers use to build out their first-party components.
Right, okay.
So if you look at the Dynamics 365 apps, you look at them and you go, okay, they're using stuff that we don't have access to.
Right.
They've gone and it's their Rolls Royce. They've invested in drag and drop. It's modern. There's a lot of stuff going on there. So it's called the Power Apps Component Framework, and you develop these components with TypeScript, essentially JavaScript, and you can use modern web frameworks. Pretty sure it supports React as well. So we're seeing a lot of the community now build these out, and there's now websites that host a lot of these community components that people are building out, and people doing courses on them, and
Okay.
and some of the interfaces that some people are building are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
But it's still wrapped in that
Yeah,
that
so-
wrapper of the application. But you can essentially build your own.
Yeah.
If you go, I really like that modern component that I saw on a different platform or website.
Yeah.
Out of the box. So, I mean, Dynamics is, or when you build some of these applications, they can be a little bit dry, particularly the model-driven apps. There's not much, there's visuals and stuff going on.
No.
If you go look at HubSpot, you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Or Monday.com or those ones, you're like, these ones are, they're a lot more leaner and agile compared to Microsoft. But you can certainly draw inspiration from them with the right skill sets and develop these things.
Yeah, so that basically
So-
means organisations can extend what they can do
Yep.
with the no or low code environment by creating their own components
Yep.
that other people can then use to drag
Yeah.
into those.
Yeah, they've got new component libraries
Yeah.
now as well, so you can publish your enterprise libraries in there, and people can go and use them if they're, IT or tech or developers have put them there. So,
Awesome.
and then you've got the other ones, the Azure functions for doing real complex serverless capabilities, and the Azure data lakes, so bringing in data from there and other areas and mashing it all together and start to get insights out of that.
Great.
So, look, an example business process here is a flight booking system, which, there's a lot going on there. If you've ever looked at a data model for a flight booking system or, used one of these before. But this just goes to show the integration and extension story with Azure and Power Platform. So, you've got some stuff coming in here with App Insights, custom APIs, and then it's going through to Azure Storage, Azure Functions, it's pushing some stuff into Teams, reporting's going through Azure Data Lake up to Power BI, and then your main user interface is going through Power Apps, and there's some updates and interactions happening behind the scenes. But that's I guess to paint the picture of how you can build solutions far beyond what's available just in the Power Platform, and extending it out into Azure to solve real problems. But again, use it as a starting point.
Yeah.
Only go out there if you really need to.
Yeah.
Because you are taking on more customizations. So.
For sure.
I spoke about Center of Excellence. So Microsoft provide a toolkit basically as a starter kit, and we've done some customizations on top of that. That we can come in and deploy this and train IT teams how to use it over a 2-week period. But the main things here is that IT can understand what's going on in the environment. They can push apps, workflows, bots, robotic process automations. If people have started to stand those things up through a governance process that can be customized, configured, and then endorsed and put into portals where people can go and view them or get templates from them. But it's also good for nurturing people in the environment, so understanding who the top makers are and what they're doing exactly, whether they're doing just basic stuff or real complex stuff, and also the data protection, governance, and compliance. So it's that's very it's very important for IT teams to be across that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So this is how they can. This is how IT can actually keep on basically fulfilling their role and their remit, right? Still managing what's going on in the organization in terms of IT and knowing and having that sense of safety and as you say, governance over what's actually happening with the IT infrastructure. And as you were mentioning before, things not going outside of that. Every time an employee needs something, they're pushing data outside of the organization into whatever service. And this is the opposite of that.
We're still seeing a lot of IT teams and ones that we've been meeting with and dealing with, in customers and clients that say, we're not too sure about this. We don't want our people developing stuff and we don't want them doing stuff. Well, they're going to go and find
They
a
do it
solution.
anyway,
Yeah.
They're going
don't
to go
they?
out and going to get something. Why
Yeah.
not let them do it in a world that you've got more control over
Yes.
anything that you've ever had before?
You can actually
Instead
see
of-
what they've been doing. I mean, which is
Yeah.
not like a snoopy thing, but it's a very good way to understand what people are doing and even what problems they're
Yeah.
facing, what technologies they're experimenting with.
Yep.
I mean, these are roles within the organization. They're responsible for what happens to the data
Yeah.
and, where it goes.
Yep.
And now they can do that.
Which is interesting from the perspective that this platform really enables business users, not just more technical people, to be able to start rolling out some kind of, or building something, some kind of solution or workflow or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Because there's always been this big divide between technology and the needs of business. That's very, like, the people, that's always been a bit of a miscommunication, a ground of miscommunication. But having, there's not a lot of opportunity there to have a better insight. Well, one, enabling business or managers or whoever it might be to be rolling things out and having, being able to solve their problems in the moment, and then being able to actually see what that is as well.
Yep.
It's quite insightful.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if you, a lot of organisations, it's like, here's your laptop, here's Microsoft Office, away you go.
That's
You
it.
know, here's the spreadsheet application that's over 20 years old and an email client that's 20 years old as well. And go on, you'll be right.
Yeah.
These are the tools, whether it's Microsoft or Salesforce or whatever the brand. These are the tools of the future. These are the things that organisations need to be looking at, enabling and training people on from day one, because they're the domain experts. They know the problems that need to be solved, and
Absolutely,
we come in and help them do that. Whether they lack the capacity or capability, but there's certainly a groundswell that we're seeing happening at the moment. But
And this creates the centre of excellence. That creates that dialogue, right, between IT and business. Then because you're establishing that active communication between these, like, as you mentioned, Jason, the two profound silos in every large organisation.
Yep. So this is a really good slide that I got from Microsoft. You can probably tell because it's very fancy and it's got a lot of animations in there.
I love it.
But it paints, it sort of sums up what we've been speaking about around the value lifecycle. So, it's not just about creating applications and automating things. That's very much part of it. But it's about the holy grail of making your data more valuable and getting insights out of it and getting predictive insights out of it. That's what a lot of organisations are trying to do. They're trying to bring all their different data points together and turn that into business value. It's gold, essentially.
Yes.
But you've got to start somewhere. And this is where these platforms help. So being able to digitally capture the data. And once you've done that, you can then automate it. You can start moving it through different systems. You can start bringing other systems into it and start creating new experiences. Then you can put it into things like the Common Data Service. And that's where full relational databases start describing different relationships with data that you may have not had access to before. And then get more insights. And then, went back one.
There's the connectors.
Yeah, the connectors, which I've spoken about, and we'll highlight that again. And then you've got platforms like Azure where you can process all of that data up in the cloud, petabytes worth of data very efficiently. And then as I said, the holy grail is to be able to consume that data, and that is allowing self-service BI in your organisation, people to create dashboards, reports from all the different data points.
Just as they need to.
Just as they need to.
Yeah.
They can't go and break anything.
Yeah.
They can, work out why some projects are failing versus others, why there's more incidents happening on this particular work site or whatever it might be than another one because it's related to maybe the people who are working there or different other trends or data that you're pulling in. So you can, it's
There's a lot of possibilities in
there's
that.
there's so much, but it's it's very ambitious, and we've spoken to a client. We showed them this, and they go, "Oh, we sort of started up at the top end here."
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that common? Is that something they kind of go
It's
for,
for what everybody wants, right? Can we have
Yeah.
that straight away, please?
Yeah.
It's like, well, we want AI when everything's going AI and data and all this other stuff, but we haven't sort of fixed this
Trying to
other.
get it from all disparate
We're still
sources
using
and-
lots of paper, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
the guys are still on site doing paper checklists for whatever reason, and
Yeah.
that data isn't getting in.
Yeah.
We can't make use out of it. So.
No.
So what kinds of things would you recommend for a business to be able to kind of, I guess, end up at that holy grail? Is it
Yeah.
about, automating business processes to be collecting, data from everywhere, so it's
What
things
is
aren't
on the
being
ground?
lost? Or,
What does the starting point look like?
yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously anything with an established process is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But if it traverses through different systems that have a lot of human APIs, so
Mhm.
people doing stuff, moving data
Yeah.
from one system to another, they're ripe for this sort of stuff as
Yeah.
well. Field services, people
Mm.
capturing data out in
Yeah,
the field,
out in the field with tablets and things
whether
like
it be safety checks or
Mm.
ordering systems. Still, a lot of that is done in paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's, people that we've spoken to is like, oh, well, that's just we have to do it on paper. That's kind of the way we've been doing it. Or, health and safety mandates because we can't use mobile phones on site.
Mm.
I think some of these things can be challenged personally, but,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but look, there's sometimes people have a lot of excuses for this sort of stuff, but it's, there's so many, approvals is a big
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So whether it be employee onboarding approvals, business case approvals, ordering new equipment, there's, emails out to various different people, bottlenecks, paper forms.
Yeah.
It's a mixed
For
bag.
sure.
Yeah.
And
And so how, in your experience working, implementing these kinds of solutions, how much has that had to do with collating data sources into one lake, so to speak? Because, there's often, they might have CRM data or customer information and then financial information and, all these different kind of sources or different kinds of information. But obviously for the Holy Grail, you want to be able to integrate all of that. So at what line in that kind of evolution would that happen?
so, look, you probably want to get it into that data lake as soon as you can,
Yeah.
because it supports the
Okay.
schema that you're bringing it in from.
Mm.
You don't have to spend a lot of time shaping it and transforming it to fit. If you wanted everything in the common data service, and we've done that before,
Yeah.
there's a lot of shaping and transformation that has to happen to get it in
Mm.
there and get it right. And even, that can support millions of rows of data, but you start getting some, some interesting stuff happening when you try and export it and whatnot.
Yeah.
Data lakes are better used for that. Bringing in different sources, integrating it. You can still shape it.
Yeah.
But you can relate it together a lot better, and it
Okay.
supports just a much larger data set. So I would say, as early as you can, start looking at getting data into a data lake in this process. So,
Mhm.
straight after the capture stage.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
But Common Data Service has connected straight into Azure Data Lake as well.
Yeah.
So you can have a sync going on between
Yeah.
them.
Going between them.
Yeah, well, one way really. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so demo time.
Cool.
Got a couple of demos, and the first one is basically, we've obviously spoken about spreadsheets and the
Yeah.
proliferation of spreadsheets, and this is a lot of projects that I've been on. Everything's done in spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And you've got a master data file that has a number of different versions, and just one person can only be in it, or someone's gone home and taken an offline copy, and then they've made their updates, and then someone else has made their online updates, and you've got two different versions.
Yes.
And someone else emailed it,
Yeah.
and I know Google Sheets and where Microsoft's where they are now in Office 365 does solve a lot of that, but you still get instances like these. But these things can be shared very easily. They can be copied, data can be corrupted.
Yes.
There's no audit trails. They're very limited, and this just is an example for all the other types
It's a
of
classic
different
use case, isn't it? Really.
classic use case.
Yeah.
So instead of using something like this, you've got your basically who you've contacted and when, and you've got your sales in here,
So
and
this is like a
CRM.
CRM kind of.
this
like
is an Excel CRM.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's like the
So
homemade
then-
HubSpot or something.
Yeah, a lot of
Salesforce
businesses
or
with something like
What have you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with a couple of hours, you could whip up this pretty quickly,
Yeah.
and put some conditional formatting in and whatnot. But what a much better use case is that's not it. Is this new capability? So, as I said before, Dataverse is the new name for the common data service and the database that powers the Power Platform. And they have released new capabilities and functionalities in Teams. So you can build out Canvas type applications that leverage the Teams UI in Teams. So this app was built completely in Microsoft Teams.
Oh, so if people have Teams, they've got this now.
Yes. So you have a
Okay.
Teams license or existing Microsoft licenses.
Yeah.
You might want to check the fine print, but you can now build applications at no additional cost. You get an environment with a database. You can put over 1 million rows of data in there. It's relational. You've obviously got the security and compliance aspects to it, and you also get, and I'll just quickly jump over here. You can build chatbots and the workflows as well. All within
Okay.
this
Yeah.
for you're probably already paying for it. So typical Microsoft, they'll go and cram everything into these
Yeah.
solutions to get them real sticky and get people using them. But it's
Yeah.
it's quite incredible what you can do, because think about Slack and Teams. It's where we do our work now. They're being used every single
Yeah.
day. So why not extend them, add applications into the tabs? So this one's in the sales team. So the sales team, we can have conversations here, we can put our files here, and we can have our CRM sitting right here in the application. But I'll just go back to here because it's
kind of like the whole point
widescreen.
being like where you're working. What was the term you used before? Like where the people are working.
Yeah, take it to where the people work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I
don't
mean, it
get
makes
them out of
sense.
Teams and use some other application for
Yeah.
this. Give them everything in the
Yep.
place where they spend all their time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can consider this a lighter version of the full Power
Mhm.
Platform
Okay.
and Dataverse. Got to remember my terminology because they change the names every now and then. However, you can convert it into a full-blown Dataverse
Okay.
solution. So you're not just stuck with this. If you
No.
want to extend and go further, then you can
Yeah.
do that.
Okay.
So this is
So
this
you don't
is-
lose that work that you've put into this.
You don't have to start from
Yeah.
scratch. Yeah. Yep. So, this is a basic sort of CRM with companies, contacts, and orders. And, we can go in and look at our contacts. We can see what type of contact they are, the
Yeah.
company they work for, what status they are. We can open up a form and see what actions we've got
Yeah.
assigned to them, the orders, put in things like profile photos. We can add new actions, email, price list,
Yeah.
instead of as a email, obviously.
Assuming they're all fake example emails as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is all fictitious data. However, we can create orders as well, but we've got Mr. Jason Hardy in here as well, and he's been busy ordering MacBook Pros and Surface Books.
Where are you getting my data?
From for the Digital Village people? So, this all started with a blank canvas, and you can build it out to, whatever you kind of imagine. You get a lot of different controls and capabilities, and you can build out really
So,
good business solutions
quite
with
rich
this sort of stuff.
applications.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I'm just imagining some people in a team who would be interested in implementing something like this. Like they would really see the value, who would be using Teams or something like that. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I want to have a go at rolling this out. It's
Mm.
part of our license. How kind of, to what extent does their technical knowledge need to be in order to build something like that?
I think, look, if you're pretty comfortable with Excel and doing, so you've done some advanced stuff with Excel, or you've done some things with Access or Power BI, you'd pick this stuff up pretty well.
Yeah.
Power users, so to say. I mean, I can't understate enough, training and enablement, and getting, qualified people in to help you start that journey as well. But, with some time, you can pick this stuff up and start building things, start with some basic stuff. Yeah. There's a very big community online, which is another good thing about this Microsoft Power Platform. Very strong community. So, if you're stuck and you need to get help, you go on the forums. There's lots of people who will offer help. There's lots of free training as well, and then paid training. And Microsoft put on a bunch of free training as well. So there's lots of different options. And LinkedIn Learning as well. Obviously, being a Microsoft company, has a lot of this stuff. Pretty fresh and current. If you go search for Power Apps, and they have courses on that now. So so that's you can, as I said, you can build stuff out pretty quickly. Surface it in Teams, whether it's a CRM or an ordering application or HR application.
Yeah, because you do have all your people there, right? So anything that you want to do that's involves those people, that's the perfect place.
And then you can automate stuff behind the scenes with the workflows, and even have chatbots as well, to do some of the heavy lifting. So
sitting right there in Teams, waiting for everybody.
So key takeaways: Excel, it's easily shared externally. Data leakage can be difficult to collaborate with multiple users, and as I said before, the versioning issues and data quality and integrity, things getting overwritten, changed, lookups breaking, you name it. You could argue someone could take a screenshot of what we just went through, but no one's really gonna make much use out of that.
It's not usable,
as opposed to a spreadsheet,
data.
with a chunk of data that you can do
with tens and tens of thousands of rows in it. No, absolutely.
So the next one is an app that we did for a government agency recently, to manage their office bookings. So return to office. And we will load that up now. And this one's quite interesting because it was built very fast, and it's been widely used, hundreds of bookings per day, for people to book a spot in their home office, basically.
People were just dealing with a different kind of workforce of people coming into the office, different usage of the office. And so what was the need, I guess? I'm just trying to give...
So they wanted to open up their offices, start welcoming people back in. A lot of companies are probably going through that at the moment, return to work.
The employer's office.
Employer's office. So to do that in a safe manner and abide by regulations, they had to cut down their capacity significantly.
This is the maintain distancing and everything.
Maintain social distancing. There's applications out there that other partners have developed as well, and even SaaS companies that you can book an actual desk and a spot. Depends how your office is configured. That sort of thing didn't work for them, but they didn't want people turning up, and sometimes it can get a bit messy and awkward to say, hey, I've booked that, and it's like, no, you haven't. I was sitting here first, and
turned into a big fight.
HR get involved. It gets messy. But what they had to do is space every second desk, essentially. So if you book a spot on the floor, you go to that floor and you go find an available seat. And this app is to manage the capacity, so you can't make a double, you can't go over that capacity, essentially. And you need to show your booking to security to get into the building. If you don't have a booking, you don't get in. So there's business rules and logic in here which you'll see that prevent that ever happening, basically. And they wanted to capture data that was in various different systems that they didn't have access to. So good opportunity if everyone's going to be using this is to use it as a bit of a way to capture some data as well at the same time.
Okay.
So like building access cards and whatnot. So
So they start to tie all that together then.
yep.
Yeah.
So I've taken out any of the actual agency. It's just done with some fictitious ones. But we dynamically filters on the agency that you're in first time. So it'll dynamically show the different business groups associated with that agency. So we'll just go health for this one. We'll say Sydney and level 2. And the reason we do this is because when we go to book somewhere, it will remember that detail and basically filter on that the building and floor that I selected in my profile.
Yeah.
This is obviously all for mobile, by the way.
This is a mobile form
Yeah.
factor, using it on. This is a Power App,
Mm.
and obviously available on mobile device and web. But I can dynamically see how many spots are available and then book a spot. But it's got some rules in there to say, hey, you've already got a spot booked on that day, so you have to select another day. So let's go Monday. So Monday's free for level 3. Go ahead and book that.
What are you doing on Monday at 3:30?
Well, I'm going to an office in Sydney at level 3, if you must know. So it tells me how many bookings I've got, some information about them. I can cancel them. Gives me some checks. And then going back to the profile, all this is brought in from your Office 365 profile as well, so you can leverage all of the data points that you got in Office 365, so people don't have to go and enter their names and emails and whatnot.
Over and over, yeah.
And then I can add building access cards as well, which is those data points and things that I wanted to see. But it's a mobile app. You launch it through the Power App, or the Power App's mobile app, and it's performant, mobile friendly. Solve those problems.
And you were able to spin this up quite quickly. There was quite an immediate need for it by the sounds of it.
Yeah, there was a lot of urgency behind this one, but we were able to turn it around pretty quickly. Due to a lot of this stuff already being in place. But if we actually, I've got those key takeaways again. They wanted to maximise their existing investment in Microsoft.
Sure.
Going out and buying a new workload or a new app for that many people. It's something they want to do and they want to get to. They've seen some possibilities with this now, and but it's sometimes costs can be a prohibitor. So maximising that existing licensing that you've got made sense. Only staff with the agency's email address. Only one of those people to access it.
Yeah, because you basically get that for free, right?
That's the only way you get access to this app.
Yeah.
If you're part of that tenant, that organisation.
Yeah, that access control is just brilliant.
Yeah. So you couldn't go and do it from your personal account and all that stuff if you really wanted to, but yeah.
Sure.
And it's extensible, so this thing can be extended and improved upon, and more functionality and features added into it. And it's got a back end as well, so they can control their capacity and floors and add new floors, remove them, new buildings, all that sort of stuff.
That's great, because that means that they can, from that back end, they can start to control about how the employees are spread out through the physical building, right?
Yeah, you can start. You've got thousands of records now. Keeping an eye on it, you can start to analyze that data. And if they have a COVID incident, they can go and check. Who it was, when, what floor, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Even in terms of just the management of the application as well. So they're able to had an immediate need. We need to build something quickly, solve a problem really quickly. You could often that results in building some unintegrated piece of software that sits by itself, and then it's done, and then I will deal with
something
it later.
That's thrown out.
Yeah.
Maybe never quite get thrown out.
But then you're able to rapidly build something, and it's still actually scalable on top of that. And it's all centralized. I think it's
fully integrated.
Yeah.
That's great.
Where they wanted to go initially when we spoke to them was they wanted to go in a different path, and then said, look, you're gonna have a lot of trouble scaling it and getting the data in and out of it. The admin's just gonna eat you alive. This is a much better solution. And for people out there who might not be seeing this as a serious platform, New South Wales government are using Power Platform, not just this agency but other agencies.
Yeah.
So I see that as a bit of a tick of approval.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, and that's like a wonderful example of rapid digital transformation, right?
Yep.
They've met many different needs all at once very quickly
Yep.
in a way that integrates with all their existing data and infrastructure. So yeah, that's great.
Yep. All right, last one. We got time for one more, or how are we tracking?
Yeah, I reckon we got time for one more, and then a couple of questions,
Yep.
and
Yep.
Cool.
yeah.
Oh, key takeaways are up there. Shouldn't see those. So the last one is the employee onboarding, age-old painful experience. You join an organisation, you turn up on day one, and you're, sitting there waiting around. You don't have your IT accounts, you don't have your devices, you end up waiting a week, you got to fill out a
I was going to say, what's the longest you ever waited?
It's probably about 2 weeks, I think,
2 weeks.
for things to get properly sort of sorted out.
Yeah.
And going back to this form, I mean, this is just 2 weeks ago, my sister-in-law said, can you print off all my new forms? She joins a new company for an investment bank.
Okay.
And print everything off, fill it out, sign it, scan it back in, email it back. And there's still lots of companies doing stuff like this.
And like, it's obviously like really established companies, often established companies. Probably.
Yeah. I mean, even, a couple of years ago at a very big, probably well-known company, lots of this did exactly this. I was waiting for quite a while.
Yeah.
Doing, implementing or providing a good experience from day one, it'll increase retention. It'll be much better user experience. You're not going to have things in bottlenecks or waiting for someone to approve something who's gone on leave for 3 weeks. And, these systems are perfect for this sort of thing, Power Platform. So we'll jump over to the application. So this is the other type of Power App. This is what they call a model-driven app, and it's very similar to, if you've ever seen Dynamics 365, you're basically using the same interface. So you've got things like business process flows that guide you through this process to, the hiring manager has to fill out these. Actually, no, let's do you, Luke.
Sure.
You can't progress this through until you've fill out all the right information. I'll just pop that in, and you're going to be an employee. So we'll go and save that. And so we've got all these things that we need now, and we can push it through the next phase. But there's some other information that I want to get in here, and this is more or less just for the demo purposes. I want to check a few more things. It's already giving me a automated employee ID that's automatically generated. These things can be configured, based on random strings and numbers and stuff like that.
Sure.
You can put in a start date. Say he starts next week. Who your manager is. You're going to be reporting to Nesta. You're going to be in the technology technology department. That makes sense. And look, well,
We don't use the
140.
word
Another zero.
employee at Digital
More
Village.
zeros.
Hey?
We don't use the word employee at Digital Village. No, I'm just joking.
Casual. So, looking at these forms, this is sort of the typical information you need, and these are stored in some of them are in the one place, in various different places. See this as kind of a system of record, basically. Put your home building in Sydney. We could fill out all this other information, but in the interest of time, we won't do that. So we will go ahead and save that now, and then shortly. So already we've got manager approval. It's awaiting approval. So we're awaiting, I guess, Nesta in this case, but it's actually going to be me, to approve you as being onboarded as a new employee.
Sure.
So I've got this come through to my email. This is a dynamic card, so it puts in this information. You can format these differently and pretty them up a bit. But we haven't done it for this, basically. So we'll approve that. So
No.
you're going to be joining the digital
That's
village.
Mm.
And then once we've done that, it'll go off to the next process, and I'll show you the process at the end of it, of all the different moving parts. But now it goes off to the HR approval, and HR needs to approve it. You need to look at things like salary and you can click on the link, but I don't think this account has access to that environment. So if I flick back here, pop that in, I can go in and fill out some other information here if I needed to. I probably don't need to now as a HR person, but you can add in dynamic links to different things or documents or information that people need to review. And I think we approved that. No, we didn't. We'll approve that. So that's done. HR's approved. So it was awaiting approval after the manager approved it. And we'll just give it a little refresh. We can see now the HR's approved it, and we're waiting on tech approval. Obviously quite important because tech need to go and fill out the accounts and do that sort of stuff. This can be automated and moved along, but for this particular use case, we're just using a more simplified version of it. So if we head over to this email again now, we've got the IT approval, and we can put a message in here, say please create the IT accounts before hitting approve. So create the IT accounts, get all that done.
Sure.
And say yep, accounts created. Then we can submit that off. And then we will go over. Oh, got a little confetti. I don't think it's coming yet. Maybe taking a little bit of time, but this is the email that as the new employee I get, because my email was added in here. So it says congratulations on your new role, we're excited to see you, I'll have you on the team. As part of joining, we need to set up your accounts and whatnot. So you're joining as a business analyst, so it's dynamic role in the human resources department, reporting to, that one obviously didn't come through, tells you your first day, and the home office is just pulling back on more of a GUID value, but this, it's with a little bit more time and effort, it can be prettied up to something in a proper HTML email, and supporting documents and things that you want to send them. But it doesn't stop there. You can send something, keep the workflow going, and send things the first week or the second week, and send a checklist or a survey.
Sure.
But as part of this form that we saw, the user needs to. We need some information from the user. We don't know what their banking details are. We don't know what their tax file number is, or if they're Australian resident for tax. We could send them a paper form when they arrive on the first day, but we want to do better than that. And as part of that email, they're sent a simple Microsoft form that collects the details, and then in submitting this form, it then goes and updates those records in the HR app.
Fantastic.
And then the final step is automating the IT account creation. Sorry, I'm getting a bit relaxed. And then you can surface those approvals into Teams. They don't have to be an email. It can be in Teams where people are working. You can send them to a group, not just an individual. You can look for events that say, if I'm getting it out of office, send it to someone else. So you can make it quite resilient. And for teams involved in that process, it was doing a few checks, approving things, going into the system, reviewing some stuff. That can all be security trimmed as well. So HR can only see HR stuff. The hiring manager can only see the hiring manager stuff. IT can only see some things. You don't want them seeing what people get paid and whatnot. But then you can also create maybe a different application that just has those specific components, but they're all talking to each other.
Sure.
So
that's something that's quite rich that you can build with, again, using the Power Apps.
Yep.
interface.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we didn't even touch on dashboards and reports and
No.
starting to
Because
build out that functionality.
Because I'm sure you could collect a lot of stats along the way.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
from that, like how long does it take to get approvals? What's the average time for onboarding an employee? Or
Well, this counts the whole duration. It's been active for 7 minutes. So as these go along, you can see that, how long something's been in a process for.
Yeah.
So getting that feedback is quite important. But if we look at, it may have abysmally failed at the end, but we'll just check.
But also, this is the sort of thing that people in the business can then go and change around if they need to.
Yep.
Without getting IT massively involved in those things as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you've created it, or consultancy like us has created something like this for you, and you want to go in and say, oh, well, if something's broken or where's it up to, you can go through your workflow and quite literally check all the steps, where it went, which branch, whether it went down this way. All the green ticks associated with it means it was. There's the HR approvals that sent the emails, and you can do initialize variables, and IT have done their part, and that's all the data that got sent to them. And
wow.
you go.
So you can track back all the way through for what a particular
for every single time
task.
that's fired off.
Yeah.
You can get the full trail of what happens.
Wow.
So I can see, okay, which employee was created. It should have your name in here, Luke. So, this is a view of doing it. You can transpose a lot of this information, put it into more of a register, and similar to the application we just walked through, really, which is far more user friendly than this. But in terms of these things, they're not big lines of code.
Again, this is
sitting on a server somewhere that magic happens, or not magic, but
but again, this is something that a business user can come and wrangle with if they need to solve a problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. So, showing I guess the what's possible there with Power Apps, Power Automate, and that was quite literally scratching the surface for only a couple of the different apps there. So, obviously connecting multiple systems, bringing the experiences to where the people work, and keep going on about that, and reducing bottlenecks and single points of failure. So you can make them quite resilient.
That's awesome.
Thanks very much for that. That was terrific.
It's all right.
Yeah. There's a few questions that have come in, so we might get to those.
Sure. That's it.
So Ewelina from Poland has asked
Wow.
if there is any cybersecurity implications in the ecosystem itself. I guess that's what she's asking. Or how does it address those kind of concerns, I suppose?
So, first and foremost, you can't access these applications without your ID, your Azure Active Directory, Office 365 ID.
So this is the ID that your organisation, your employer, would issue to you when you've done your onboarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone in the organisation, or you could have shared it out to a guest user. They also need a Microsoft account.
Yeah.
And if you have multi-factor authentication turned on, which you should, that's another layer of security, and there's far deeper things you can implement there at that security level, which has a knock-on effect to these sorts of applications. So, all the big banks are using Office 365. Government organisations, federal organisations are now starting to use it. It's a very secure and safe platform. It's been certified by the Australian Signals Directorate, cybersecurity governing bodies, and these platforms, they sit within that, and you've got the option to store the data onshore for these.
Oh,
so
really?
It's not at rest, so it's in Australian data centres. And then you've got things like data loss prevention capabilities, security roles and trimming, so you can get very granular row level security, field level security as well, on who can see what. So there's a lot you can do.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So
there's just a couple of other, they're not necessarily questions, but a couple of comments from Ash. James is innovative. I worked with him at Transfer New South Wales. Good live streaming demos. Thanks to all.
Who's
Thanks,
that, sorry?
Ash. That's all it's got.
Oh, Ashutosh. Is that right?
Thanks, Ash. But so, yeah, any other questions from you? Otherwise, I think it's been very thorough. So it's been
Yeah.
quite insightful to see the capability of the platform, and especially linking it to, there was a lot of examples in there of the different components of a digital business and how technologies like this can be used to run more, be more responsive to change and accelerate digital transformation.
But I think it's also great because we've seen what it can do, we've seen the capability there, but we've also seen some great starting points for organisations.
Yeah.
And to see how they can access the value of it now, and that it might be there already for many organisations.
Yeah.
So I think that's really incredible because we've seen what can be done with it. We can see how quickly results can be achieved with it, and it's highly available, and you get all of the goodies that come with a big enterprise service offering.
Yep. And it's at a pretty competitive price point. When you look at some of the other options and providers out there, all the stuff I've shown you can be done on those 2 licenses that I spoke about.
So I guess that's a big takeaway is for companies to perhaps, or people listening, to go and check what licensing they have and actually what they could be doing a lot more, getting a lot more return on investment by just leveraging what they already have. That's a good example of what you get. What you can get.
Yeah, if they've got any questions, reach out. Or if they, they have a Microsoft account manager, they can speak with them directly. But yeah, we unfortunately know the licensing stuff fairly well because it's very dry. 30 pages of documentation.
Okay, so a couple of finishing remarks.
Yep.
If anyone would like to get in touch with James for work, you can either come to the Digital Village website or go straight to your LinkedIn or the website, which is sentientdynamics.com. .au. Some other remarks. We've got a live event starting back next year, which should be fun. We'll probably keep the DV show going, I reckon. And just a bit of a different thing. And if you're a digital practitioner and interested in working with us on a project basis, please register your interest. Steve, do you want to drop that in the chat box? And also, if you're a business wanting to work with us on a project basis or engage us in any kind of project delivery, then again, there's another link in the chat box there as well. Any closing remarks from you, James?
No, I think that's it. You've talked a hell of a lot.
Remarked a lot.
The last hour and a half. Look, I guess the one sort of last takeaway is that Microsoft is not so much of a very rigid, organisation as it used to be anymore.
It's outgrown its reputation, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's not, just the Windows and Office apps. They're really investing heavily in this stuff, and they're a leader in the space. So they're it's going to be a good one to back at the moment.
I think so.
Anything last remarks, Luke?
No, I'd just like to say, thanks heaps to James for coming along and telling us about all of this. It's been an eye-opener. I wasn't familiar with the Power Platform either, so it's been really great just to learn all about it. Thanks.
Thanks a
lot, mate. Thanks. We'll let's go have a beer for the afternoon and wrap it up. Steve, celebrate.
So.
Anything else from you guys? And another big thanks to Steve and Chris for running this show.
Solid production.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Okay. Thanks for dialing in, everyone, and we'll see you next month. Actually, no, you won't see us next month. No, in January.
Last one of the year.
Yeah.
Right.
Merry Christmas. Okay. Over and out.
All right.